Forza Motorsport 7 was definitely front and centre for Microsoft. They, of course, pretty much kicked off their conference with it at E3. Of course, it's one of the few games, I think one of the only games actually, that's the 100% confirmed will be running at 60 on the brand new Xbox One X. But we now have the minimum and recommended PC system requirements for the game. My name is Amata, and in this Red Gaming Tech video we're going to take a look at those requirements. So, shockingly to no one ever, I'm going to be really radical and start off with the minimum specs. I know, when will the wildlife stop? I just need to go on to Mad Lads and just call it a day. However, surprisingly to no one ever, it's going to be a Windows 10 only game and is going to have DX12 support, which is pretty damn awesome. 8 gigs of memory are required, that being RAM of course, and in terms of the processor you will need an Intel i5 750 at 2.67 GHz. Unfortunately, no AMD card is listed here. But for the graphics, you will need a GT 740 or a GTX 650, or from Camp AMD, you'll need a R7 250X with 2 GB of VRAM for all of those. Sadly, they haven't actually specified what minimum and recommended means, and despite the obvious 4K support for the console version, they do not have a maximum requirement, which is usually for 4K, but you can at least go from the recommended and take a sort of rough guesstimate as to what you would require. But moving swiftly on to the recommended. Obviously Windows 10 is still here, DX12, the amount of RAM is actually remaining the same, surprisingly, 8 GB. But obviously there is a difference, a fairly significant difference when it comes to the CPU and GPU that you will require to run the game. In terms of the processor, you will need an Intel i5 4460 at 3.2 GHz, and for the graphics you'll need a GTX 670 or a 1050 Ti. And this is going to be obviously with 4 GB of video memory. So it's not terribly expensive because a 1050 Ti is of course Nvidia's sort of fairly cheap and cheerful graphics card. If you want to see what the performance is actually like for it, we did actually do a review of the Galax 1050 Ti Exoc. I'll include a link as a title card right about now if you're at all interested. Perhaps you need to upgrade, or even if you're just curious, it is there for your perusal if you so desire. If nothing else, it's nice to see a game being added to the fairly limited list of games that actually use DX12. Of course, we've got Rise of the Tomb Raider, we've got Hitman, we've got Ashes of the Singularity, we've got Deus Ex. There might be some others I'm forgetting, but I'm pretty sure that's the main sort of bundle of games that support DX12. So it's nice to see some other games entering the fray, if only, it's a shame it's a racing game, a game that I not really going to play myself because I'm terrible at every racing game that isn't Burnout, but it's still nice to see an extra edition nonetheless. And it's definitely good to see that the requirements are definitely a little bit hefty on the CPU side, but at least manageable. You don't need like a 1080 Ti or whatever to run this. Obviously, if you want to run this at 4K, you're definitely going to need to bring the beef, but at least you have a sort of starting point, a springboard, if you will. Regardless of all that, I want to know your guys' thoughts on E3 in general. As I said, there is going to be a podcast with Paul and myself, hopefully tomorrow. I've got a bit of a sore throat at the moment. I'm hoping a good night's rest will get rid of it. I have been not sleeping all that brilliantly because of E3, getting up quite early to cover all these games after going to bed quite late, that sort of thing. So, yeah, there should be a podcast soon where we talk all the E3 stuffs and the highlights and the games that we're looking forward to for this year. But, with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.